The Nigean warships entered Earth's solar system with a message that shook humanity to its core. Pathetic defenses, primitive civilization, the alien transmission blared across every communication channel on the planet. Earth's government scrambled, activating planetary defense systems and mobilizing military forces, but their efforts proved futile against the technologically superior invaders. In a small town in Kansas, Kevin Williams, a 35-year-old former Marine turned high school gym teacher, watched the events unfold on his television. His fists clenched as he saw the United Nations convene an emergency session, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. The Nigean fleet, comprised entirely of female warriors, took up positions around Earth, easily neutralizing attempts at resistance. The alien commander, Kaid, appeared on screens worldwide. Her 7-foot-tall, muscular frame dwarfed the human newscasters, her blue skin and silver hair marking her as unmistakably alien. She issued an ultimatum that sent shockwaves through the global population. Earth must select its strongest male champion to face her in single combat. The stakes were clear. If Earth's champion won, the Nigeans would leave the solar system. If Kaid emerged victorious, Earth would become a Nigean colony. As the UN debated the ultimatum, with some nations advocating surrender, while others pushed for continued military resistance, Kevin felt a growing sense of unease. He knew the odds were long, but a sense of duty began to stir within him. When Kaid grew impatient with Earth's indecision and threatened planetary bombardment, the UN made a desperate move. They announced a global tournament to select Earth's champion. Kevin's decision was made in an instant. He would enter the tournament despite the seemingly insurmountable odds. As news of the competition spread, millions of men worldwide began training and preparing, all hoping to become Earth's savior. The Nigeans observed these efforts with thinly veiled amusement, confident in their superiority. Kaid's public mockery of Earth's weak males only served to fan the flames of humanity's determination. As the first round of the tournament began, Kevin found himself easily defeating his local competitors. His remarkable strength and agility caught the eye of military observers, who fast-tracked him to the national level of the competition. Meanwhile, Nigean scout ships began landing on Earth, allowing small groups of alien warriors to interact directly with humans. These encounters revealed the depths of the Nigeans' disdain for Earth's culture and technology, as well as their particular scorn for human males. Kevin used these interactions to study the aliens' physiology and fighting style, determined to find any advantage he could. As the global tournament narrowed down to a handful of finalists, Kevin emerged as an unexpected contender. Kaid, watching the proceedings from her flagship, remained unimpressed and continued to taunt humanity. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as the champion selection process entered its final stages. In his Kansas hometown, Kevin intensified his training, pushing his body to its limits. He knew that the upcoming confrontation with Kaid would determine the future of humanity. As he prepared for the next round of the tournament, Kevin couldn't help but wonder, could an ordinary man from Earth truly stand against the might of an alien warrior race? The answer would soon be revealed, and the entire planet held its breath in anticipation. The global tournament unfolded with intensity as millions watched, their hopes pinned on the selection of Earth's champion. Kevin Williams found himself thrust into a world far removed from his quiet life in Kansas, competing against the planet's elite warriors in a specially constructed arena in Geneva, Switzerland. The final 5 contenders stood side by side under the glare of stadium lights. Kevin, the American dark horse, Sergei Volkov, a bear of a man representing Russia, Carlos Silva, a lithe Brazilian jiu-jitsu master, Li Wei, a former Chinese Olympic decathlete, and James Blackwood, a stoic British SAS operative. Nigean observers loomed in the stands, their blue skin and silver hair a stark reminder of the stakes. Kevin could feel their dismissive gazes, but he refused to be intimidated. He had come too far to falter now. The first challenge was a test of pure strength. Sergei grinned confidently as he hoisted a massive weight, his muscles bulging. Kevin matched him rep for rep, sweat pouring down his face as he pushed through the burn. Li Wei struggled, eliminating him from contention. Next came a grueling obstacle course that tested agility and problem-solving. Kevin's marine training kicked in as he navigated electrified wires and scaling walls. He watched Carlos take an early lead, but falter at a logic puzzle. Kevin solved it quickly, overtaking the Brazilian and finishing first. "Impressive performance, Williams," James said quietly as they prepared for the next event. "But don't get cocky. This is nowhere near the end." Kevin nodded, his eyes fixed on the Nigean scout ships landing in the distance. He had seen the news reports of their interactions with humans around the globe. Some encounters were tense, others oddly cordial. Kevin filed away every detail, knowing any information could prove vital. As the competition wore on, Kevin's well-rounded abilities shone through. He outpaced James in a tactical simulation and outlasted Carlos in an endurance challenge. When the dust settled, only Kevin and Sergei remained. The final match was set, a no-holds-barred combat trial. Kevin studied his opponent carefully. Sergei was a mountain of a man with fists like sledgehammers, but Kevin had speed and technique on his side. The two circled each other warily. Sergei lunged, aiming a bone-crushing blow at Kevin's head. Kevin ducked and countered with a swift kick to the Russian's knee. They traded blows, neither man giving ground. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Both men were battered and bleeding. Kevin's ribs ached from a particularly vicious strike, but he pushed the pain aside. He saw an opening and took it, using Sergei's momentum against him to execute a perfect throw. Sergei hit the mat hard. Kevin pounced, applying a chokehold. The Russian struggled, his face turning red, then purple. Finally, he tapped out. The arena erupted in cheers. Kevin helped Sergei to his feet, and they embraced in a show of mutual respect. As medical staff tended to their injuries, a UN official approached Kevin. "Congratulations, Mr. Williams. You are Earth's champion." The words hung heavy in the air. Kevin nodded solemnly, fully aware of the burden now resting on his shoulders. In the days that followed, Kevin's life became a whirlwind. He was whisked from press conferences to strategy meetings with world leaders. His face was plastered across every screen on the planet, a symbol of humanity's last hope. Amidst the chaos, a striking woman with intense eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor approached him. "Mr. Williams, I'm Dr. Elena Petrova. We need to talk." Dr. Petrova, it turned out, was Earth's foremost expert on Nigean biology. In a secure facility, she shared her findings with Kevin. "Their bone density is significantly higher than ours," she explained, pointing to a holographic display. "But it makes them less flexible. And here," she indicated a spot on the Nigean neck, "is a cluster of nerve endings. A precisely targeted strike could incapacitate them temporarily." Kevin absorbed every detail, incorporating the knowledge into his training regimen. He spent hours studying footage of Nigean movements, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Meanwhile, tensions on Earth continued to escalate. The presence of Nigean scouts in major cities worldwide created an atmosphere of unease. Most kept their distance from humans, but reports trickled in of isolated friendly interactions. In New York, a young Nigean named Lyra found herself captivated by a street performer's violin music. In Tokyo, another scout engaged in an impromptu game of chess with a local grandmaster. These moments of connection were rare but significant, hinting at the complexity beneath the Nigean's warlike exterior. Kevin's training intensified as the day of the confrontation drew near. He pushed his body to its limits, knowing that facing Keed would require every ounce of strength and skill he possessed. One evening, as Kevin caught his breath after a particularly grueling session, Dr. Petrova approached him with a grave expression. "There's been a development," she said, handing him a tablet. "Keed has destroyed one of our space stations. She's growing impatient." Kevin watched the footage, his jaw clenching as he saw the station disintegrate under Nigean weapons fire. The message was clear. Earth was on borrowed time. As global leaders scrambled to negotiate the terms of the combat, Kevin redoubled his efforts. He sparred with the world's top fighters, each bout bringing him closer to peak condition. Finally, after weeks of preparation, the day arrived. Kevin stood in a locker room beneath a massive stadium built specifically for this confrontation. The low hum of the crowd above was punctuated by the occasional roar of Nigene ships passing overhead. A UN official entered, looking pale. "It's time, Mr. Williams. Kaid has arrived." Kevin nodded, his expression resolute. He had trained, he had prepared, and now the moment of truth had come. As he walked towards the arena, the hopes and fears of 8 billion souls weighed upon him. The battle for Earth's future was about to begin. Kevin stepped out of the locker room, his footsteps echoing through the corridor. The roar of the crowd above grew louder as he approached the arena entrance. Suddenly, a hand grasped his shoulder. He turned to see General Marcus Stone, a weathered man with steely eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Williams, I'm General Stone. The UN has established a special task force to oversee your preparation. We're relocating you immediately." Before Kevin could respond, he was whisked away to a waiting helicopter. As they lifted off, he caught a glimpse of Kaid's massive warship hovering ominously above the stadium. The helicopter touched down at a remote facility nestled in the Rocky Mountains. Kevin was led through a series of security checkpoints into a cavernous training area filled with advanced equipment and holographic projectors. "Welcome to your new home," General Stone said, gesturing to the space. "We've assembled the best trainers and cutting-edge technology to prepare you for this fight." Over the next few weeks, Kevin's life became a blur of intense training sessions. He sparred with virtual Nigene opponents, their movements based on Dr. Petrova's research. Specialized trainers pushed him to his physical limits, developing new techniques tailored to exploit Nigene weaknesses. One morning, as Kevin caught his breath after a particularly grueling session, Dr. Petrova burst into the training area, her eyes wide with excitement. "I've made a breakthrough," she announced, pulling up a holographic display. "The Nigene's sensory perception has a unique vulnerability. Their auditory system is hypersensitive to certain frequencies." Kevin listened intently as Dr. Petrova explained her findings. The training team immediately began incorporating this new information into their strategy, developing tactics that could disorient Kaid during the fight. As Kevin's training intensified, reports of increased Nigene activity on Earth began to filter in. General Stone briefed him on a recent incident in a small town in Montana. A group of Nigene scouts encountered resistance from a local militia, Stone explained, showing Kevin footage of the skirmish. It got ugly. Both sides took casualties. Kevin watched the video, studying the Nigene's movements and fighting style. He noticed one of the aliens, a younger-looking female, hesitate before engaging. It was a small detail, but it stuck with him. The incident had far-reaching consequences. Kaid's voice boomed across global communication channels once again, her tone imbued with impatience and anger. "Humans, your time runs short. The combat will take place in 1 week. Prepare your champion or face annihilation." The ultimatum sent shockwaves through the facility. Kevin's training schedule doubled in intensity. He spent hours in the simulator, facing virtual versions of Kaid based on her public appearances and the limited combat footage available. Dr. Petrova worked tirelessly to refine her findings on Nigene biology. She developed a small device that could emit the disorienting frequency, which was incorporated into Kevin's training gear. As the day of the confrontation drew near, Kevin underwent a series of final evaluations. He moved through combat scenarios with fluid grace, his reactions honed to near perfection. The training team watched in awe as he took down simulated opponents with increasing ease. General Stone approached Kevin after the final evaluation, his expression grim. "Williams, you've exceeded our expectations, but I need to be clear about what's at stake here. If you fail..." Kevin cut him off. "I know, General. I've seen the reports." Stone nodded, then handed Kevin a tablet. Kaid ordered a demonstration of their capabilities. "You should see this." The screen showed satellite footage of a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific. A beam of energy lanced down from a Nigene ship, and in a matter of seconds, the island was simply gone. Kevin felt his stomach churn as he handed the tablet back. The night before his departure for the arena, Kevin sat alone in his quarters. He picked up a small recording device and began to speak. "Mom, Dad, if you're hearing this, it means things didn't go as planned. I want you to know that I love you and that I'm doing this to give us a chance." He continued recording messages for his family and friends, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words. The next morning, Kevin was transported to the specially constructed arena in the Sahara Desert. As the transport vehicle approached, he saw the massive structure rising out of the sand like an alien monolith. Nigerian ships hovered overhead, their presence a constant reminder of the threat looming over Earth. Kevin was led to a preparation area beneath the arena. As he went through his warm-up routine, he could hear the murmur of the crowd above. Millions more watched via global broadcasts, their hopes resting on his shoulders. A UN official entered the room. "Mr. Williams, it's time. Keed has arrived in the arena." Kevin nodded, his face a mask of concentration. He picked up the small device Dr. Petrova had given him, a last resort weapon that might give him an edge. As he walked towards the arena entrance, the crowd's roar grew to a deafening crescendo. Sunlight flooded Kevin's vision as he stepped into the arena. Across the expanse of sand, he saw Cade for the first time in person. The Nigerian commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, her blue skin glistening in the desert heat. Her silver hair was pulled back in intricate braids, and her eyes fixed on Kevin with predatory focus. A hush fell over the crowd as the two combatants faced each other. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as Kevin Williams, former Marine and high school gym teacher from Kansas, prepared to face the alien warrior Keed in single combat. Combat in single combat. The air crackled with tension as Kevin and Cade sized each other up, the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. Kevin's support team watched anxiously from a secured observation area. Dr. Petrova clutched her tablet, ready to provide real-time analysis of Cade's movements. General Stone stood rigid, his heart made, years of military experience telling him this would be unlike any battle he had ever witnessed. A deep, resonant tone echoed through the arena, signaling the start of the combat. Cade wasted no time, her massive form becoming a blur of motion as she charged at Kevin with frightening speed. Kevin's intensive training kicked in, his body reacting before his mind could process the danger. He sidestepped at the last possible moment, feeling the rush of air as Cade's fist passed inches from his face. The Nigerian commander's momentum carried her forward, and Kevin capitalized on the opening. He landed a quick succession of strikes to Cade's lower back, targeting the nerve cluster Dr. Petrova had identified. Cade let out a guttural roar, more of surprise than pain, and whirled to face her opponent. "You are quicker than I anticipated, human," Cade growled, her voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate the very air around them. "But speed alone will not save you." Kevin didn't respond, conserving his breath and focusing on Cade's movements. He circled warily, looking for openings while staying just out of reach of her long arms. Cade pressed forward, unleashing a barrage of powerful blows that forced Kevin to backpedal across the arena floor. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as one of Cade's strikes connected with Kevin's ribs. The impact sent him stumbling, and for a moment it seemed he might fall. But Kevin rolled with the blow, using the momentum to create distance between himself and his opponent. In the observation area, Dr. Petrova leaned forward, her eyes darting between the combat and her data readings. "He's implementing the strategy," she murmured to General Stone. "Drawing her out, making her expend energy." Stone nodded grimly. "Let's hope it's enough." As the fight progressed, Kevin began to find his rhythm. He led Cade on a complex path across the arena, forcing her to navigate obstacles and change direction frequently. The Nigerian's movements, while still blindingly fast, began to show signs of fatigue. Kevin seized his chance. He feinted left, then ducked under Cade's guard, landing a precise strike to a point just below her jaw. The Nigerian commander's eyes widened in shock as her sensory organs were momentarily overloaded. She staggered back, disoriented. The crowd roared as Kevin pressed his advantage. He unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks, each one targeted to exploit the weaknesses Dr. Petrova had identified. Cade, still reeling from the sensory attack, was unable to mount an effective defense. For the first time since the combat began, doubt crept into the eyes of the Nigean observers. Lyra, the young scout who had been fascinated by Earth's music, watched with a mixture of awe and concern as the human fighter held his own against their greatest warrior. Kaid, however, was far from defeated. With a bellow that shook the arena, she shook off her disorientation and countered Kevin's assault. Her massive fist connected with Kevin's face, sending him sprawling across the sand. He rolled to his feet, but not before Kaid closed the distance between them. The two combatants grappled, a stark contrast in size and strength. Kaid's arms bulged as she sought to crush Kevin in a bear hug. Kevin, his face a mask of concentration, worked to break her grip, using leverage and technique to compensate for the Nigean's superior strength. With a sudden twist, Kevin broke free, but not without cost. His right eye was swelling rapidly, and he favored his left leg as he moved. Kaid didn't escape unscathed either. Her blue skin was mottled with bruises, and a trickle of silvery blood ran from a cut above her eye. The combat had entered its final, grueling phase. Both fighters were exhausted, their movements becoming slower and less coordinated. Kevin's breaths came in ragged gasps, while Kaid's chest heaved with exertion. In the observation area, General Stone leaned in close to Dr. Petrova. "He's running out of steam. If he doesn't end this soon..." Dr. Petrova nodded, her eyes never leaving the battle. "Wait," she said suddenly, pointing to Kaid. "Look at her hand." Stone squinted, then his eyes widened in alarm. Kaid was reaching for something concealed in her armor, a weapon that had escaped the pre-combat inspection. "Williams!" Stone shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the crowd. "She's armed!" Whether Kevin heard the warning or simply anticipated the move, he reacted instantly. As Kaid produced a small, deadly-looking device, Kevin closed the distance between them. He grabbed Kaid's wrist, twisting it in a way that forced her fingers to open. The weapon fell to the sand, and in one fluid motion, Kevin swept Kaid's legs out from under her. The Nigean commander crashed to the ground with earth-shaking force. Kevin pounced, using every ounce of his remaining strength to secure Kaid in a complex grappling hold. He wrapped his legs around her torso, immobilizing one of her arms while applying pressure to her neck with his forearm. Kaid thrashed violently, her free arm flailing as she sought to break Kevin's hold. But the position nullified her strength advantage, and with each passing second, her struggles grew weaker. The arena fell silent, the tension palpable as every eye focused on the two figures locked in their final contest of wills. Kevin maintained the hold, his muscles trembling with fatigue, but his grip unyielding. Kaid's eyes darted wildly, her expression a mix of disbelief and growing desperation. Seconds stretched into an eternity as the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Kevin tightened his grip incrementally, pushing Kaid to the very limits of her formidable endurance. The Nigean commander's free hand clawed at the sand, leaving deep furrows as she fought against the inevitable. In the breathless silence of the arena, all waited for the moment that would decide the future of humanity and the Nigean invasion force alike. Kaid's struggles grew weaker, her movements becoming sluggish as the lack of oxygen took its toll. Still, the proud warrior refused to concede, her eyes burning with defiance even as her strength ebbed away. Kevin, his face a mask of iron will, maintained his hold. He could feel Kaid's alien physiology beginning to shut down, her impending unconsciousness only moments away. Yet in those final seconds, as the two locked eyes, a wordless communication passed between them. A recognition of the enormity of what hung in the balance and the weight of the decision that now rested with Kaid. Kaid. With each passing second, her struggles grew weaker. But Kaid was not finished. As Kevin maintained his hold, something shifted in the Nigean commander's eyes. A primal, alien grit flared to life. In an instant, Kaid's body convulsed with a sudden surge of energy. Kevin felt the change immediately. Kaid's muscles swelled beneath his grip, her skin hardening to an almost metallic consistency. With a roar that shook the arena, she broke free from Kevin's hold, sending him tumbling across the sand. The crowd gasped in collective shock. Dr. Petrova leaned forward, her eyes wide as she frantically analyzed the data flooding her tablet. Biologiczne ulepszenia, she exclaimed. Biological enhancements. They must have been dormant until now. General Stone's face paled. Can Williams counter this? Kevin scrambled to his feet, wincing as pain lanced through his body. He watched in disbelief as Kaide's form continued to change. Her already impressive musculature bulged grotesquely, veins pulsing with an eerie blue light beneath her hardened skin. Kaide flexed her enhanced limbs, a predatory grin spreading across her face. Did you truly believe victory would come so easily, human? She snarled. Before Kevin could formulate a response, Kaide was upon him. Her enhanced speed caught him off guard, and a massive fist connected with his ribcage. Kevin felt bones crack as he was lifted off his feet and sent flying across the arena. He hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Pain exploded through his body as he struggled to stand. His right arm hung limply at his side, the shoulder clearly dislocated. In the observation area, Dr. Petrova's fingers flew across her tablet. The enhancements are unstable, she muttered. Her cellular structure is degrading rapidly. General Stone nodded grimly. Get that information to Williams, now. Kevin circled, warily, trying to catch his breath as Kaide advanced. His mind raced, searching for a strategy against this new, enhanced opponent. Suddenly, a voice crackled in his ear. Kevin, listen carefully. Dr. Petrova's voice came through his secure earpiece. Kaide's enhancements are unstable. Focus on endurance. Make her push those enhanced muscles to the limit. Understanding dawned on Kevin's face. He straightened, ignoring the searing pain in his ribs and shoulder. As Kaide lunged forward, Kevin ducked and weaved, using the entire expanse of the arena to his advantage. Stand and fight, coward! Kaide roared, her enhanced muscles propelling her across the sand with frightening speed. But Kevin had found his second wind. He led Kaide on a complex path through the arena, forcing her to constantly change direction and exert her enhanced physiology. With each passing minute, Kaide's movements became less coordinated, more erratic. High above the arena, the Nigean fleet watched the battle unfold. Confusion and uncertainty spread through the ranks as their seemingly invincible leader struggled against the human fighter. Several ships began to break formation, their commanders unsure of how to proceed. Aboard one of the scout ships, Lyra watched the combat with growing fascination. She had been moved by the human music she had encountered during her reconnaissance missions, and now she found herself equally captivated by their tenacity. Making a decision that would alter the course of two civilizations, Lyra opened a secure channel to Earth's defense forces. This is Nigean Scout Lyra, she transmitted. I have critical information about our fleet's vulnerabilities. I believe it's time this conflict came to an end. Back in the arena, Kevin's strategy was paying off. Kaide's enhanced muscles began to spasm uncontrollably, her hardened skin cracking like dry earth. With a primal scream of frustration, she charged at Kevin one final time. Kevin saw his opportunity. He sidestepped Kaide's wild swing and unleashed a combination of strikes targeting the weakest points in her failing physiology. His fist connected with her jaw, his foot swept her legs, and in one fluid motion, he drove Kaide into the ground. The Nigean commander lay motionless, her enhanced body twitching as the unstable mutations began to subside. A hush fell over the arena as the realization dawned. The combat was over. Humanity had won its freedom. The silence lasted only a moment before the arena erupted in thunderous cheers. Across the globe, scenes of jubilation filled the streets of every city. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. But even as Kevin stood over his fallen opponent, a new crisis was unfolding. The Nigean fleet, witnessing their leader's defeat, had devolved into chaos. Some ships prepared to retreat, while others, under the command of hardline officers, moved into attack positions. Kevin, his body battered and his breathing labored, made a decision that would define this pivotal moment in human history. He knelt beside the fallen Kaide and extended his hand. "It's over," he said, his voice carrying across the arena's broadcast systems. "But it doesn't have to end in more bloodshed." Kaide's eyes flickered open, confusion and defeat warring in her gaze. After a moment's hesitation, she grasped Kevin's hand, allowing him to help her to her feet. This simple act of compassion, broadcast to both Earth and the Nigean fleet, sent shockwaves through both species. The humans watched in awe as their champion showed mercy to the alien who had threatened their very existence. The Nigeans, for their part, saw a depth of honor they had not expected from a species they had dismissed as primitive. Lyra, seizing the moment, transmitted the footage to every ship in the Nigean fleet. "Look at the strength of these humans," her voice rang out. "Not just in combat, but in compassion. Is this not a species worthy of respect rather than conquest?" Her words sowed further discord among the Nigean ranks. Ships that had been preparing to attack now held their positions, their commanders uncertain of how to proceed in the face of this unexpected turn of events. On Earth, governments scrambled to capitalize on this moment of uncertainty. Defense systems remained on high alert, ready to repel any attack. But simultaneously, diplomatic channels burst into life, reaching out to the fragmented Nigean fleet with offers of peaceful resolution. As medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to attend to both Kevin and Kaid, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The combat had been won, but the true test of humanity's resilience and wisdom was just beginning. The next few hours would determine whether this victory would lead to lasting peace or ignite an interstellar war that could consume both worlds. As the arena erupted in a cacophony of cheers and confusion, Kevin Williams stood unsteadily, his hands still clasped with Kaid's. The Nigean commander's eyes, once filled with fierce tenacity, now held a mix of respect and uncertainty. The simple act of compassion had sent ripples through both human and alien observers alike. In Earth's orbit, the Nigean fleet hung in disarray. Aboard her scout ship, Lyra's heart raced as she opened a secure channel to Earth's defense forces. "This is Nigean Scout Lyra," she transmitted, her voice steady despite the gravity of her actions. "I have critical information about our fleet's vulnerabilities. I believe it's time this conflict came to an end." The response was immediate. General Marcus Stone's gruff voice crackled through the comm system. "This is General Stone. We're listening, Lyra, but be aware. Any false moves will be met with immediate retaliation." As Lyra began transmitting data on Nigean weaknesses, chaos erupted in the fleet. Commander Zara, Kaid's second-in-command, bellowed orders from the bridge of the flagship. "Ignore that traitor's transmission. Prepare for full-scale invasion." But Zara's commands fell on increasingly deaf ears. Lyra's broadcast of Kevin's act of mercy, coupled with her own defection, had sowed seeds of doubt throughout the fleet. Ship after ship broke formation, their commanders unwilling to continue a war that seemed increasingly unjust. Back on Earth, Kevin stumbled as medics rushed to his aid. Dr. Elena Petrova pushed through the crowd, her tablet clutched tightly to her chest. "Kevin," she said urgently, "we need you for one more mission." Kevin winced as a medic prodded his ribs. "What now? I think I've done my part." General Stone approached, his face grim. "The Nigean fleet is in disarray. We have a chance to end this peacefully, but we need someone they'll listen to. Someone who's proven their worth in combat and in mercy." Realization dawned on Kevin's face. "You want me to go up there? To negotiate?" "Exactly," Petrova nodded. "You're our best chance at preventing further bloodshed." Kevin glanced at Kaid, who was being tended to by her own medical team. The Nigean commander met his gaze and gave a slight nod, as if understanding the weight of the moment. "All right," Kevin said, grimacing as he stood straighter, "but I'll need a crash course in alien diplomacy." The next few hours passed in a blur. As Kevin was patched up and prepped for his mission, Earth's governments mobilized. General Stone coordinated with military leaders worldwide, creating a unified defense network should negotiations fail. Dr. Petrova led a team of scientists in analyzing the data from Kevin's combat, developing potential countermeasures against Nigean technology. In orbit, Lyra's actions had not gone unnoticed. Commander Zara's voice boomed through the fleet's communication channels. "Scout Lyra is hereby branded a traitor to the Nigean people. Intercept and arrest her immediately." Lyra's hands flew over her ship's controls. She had known the risks when she made her choice, but the reality of being hunted by her own people still stung. With a burst of speed, her scout ship broke away from the fleet, streaking towards Earth's atmosphere. As Nigean interceptors gave chase, Lyra opened a channel to Earth's defense forces. "This is Lyra again. I'm coming in hot with vital intelligence. Request emergency landing clearance." On the ground, General Stone barked orders. "Grant her clearance, but have a containment team ready. We're not taking any chances." Kevin, now dressed in a specially designed suit for space travel, stood before a hastily assembled team of Earth's top negotiators and xenolinguists. A slender woman with sharp features stepped forward, holding out a small device. "This is a state-of-the-art translation unit," she explained. "It will help you understand and communicate with the Nigeans. Remember, their culture values strength, but also honor. Your act of mercy may have opened a door. Use it." Kevin nodded, slipping the device into his ear. As he made his way to the launch pad, he caught sight of a streak of light cutting across the sky. Lyra's ship followed closely by Nigean interceptors. "Good luck," General Stone said gruffly, clasping Kevin's shoulder. "The fate of humanity rests on your shoulders. Again." Kevin managed a weak smile. "No pressure, right?" As Kevin's shuttle lifted off, Lyra's ship screamed through the atmosphere, alarms blaring as she pushed the engines beyond their limits. With a teeth-rattling thud, she landed on a designated airstrip, immediately surrounded by armed forces. Lyra raised her hands as she exited the ship. "I come in peace," she said, her translator converting her words to English. "And I bring information that could save both our species." General Stone stepped forward, his expression guarded. "We're listening." High above, Kevin's shuttle approached the Nigean flagship. His heart pounded as the enormous vessel loomed before him. A tractor beam engaged, guiding the shuttle into a docking bay. As Kevin stepped onto the alien ship, he was immediately struck by the scale of everything. The ceilings towered above him, and the air held a metallic tang that his suit's filters couldn't quite eliminate. A group of Nigean guards approached, their postures tense. The leader spoke, his words translated by Kevin's earpiece. "Follow us. Commander Zara awaits." Kevin squared his shoulders, ignoring the pain that flared in his ribs. As he walked through the winding corridors of the Nigean ship, he couldn't help but marvel at the alien technology surrounding him. Holographic displays flickered with information he couldn't begin to comprehend, and the walls themselves seemed to pulse with energy. Finally, they reached the ship's command center. The doors slid open, revealing a vast chamber dominated by a circular holographic display of Earth and the surrounding space. Around it stood the Nigean War Council, their eyes fixed on the human intruder. At the head of the group stood Commander Zara, her posture rigid and her eyes blazing with scarcely controlled fury. She was taller than Kaid, with deep purple skin and a ridge of bony protrusions running along her skull. "So," Zara's voice boomed through the chamber, "the human champion comes to beg for mercy." Kevin took a deep breath, steadying himself. He thought of Earth, of the billions of lives hanging in the balance. He thought of Kaid and the moment of understanding they had shared in the arena. And he thought of Lyra, risking everything to bridge the gap between their species. "I'm not here to beg," Kevin said, his voice clear and strong. "I'm here to talk about the future, a future where our species don't need to fight, where we can learn from each other, grow together." Zara's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words, human, but words mean nothing without strength to back them up." Kevin nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "You're right, so let me show you our strength. Not just in combat, but in science, in art, in our ability to adapt and overcome. Give me a chance to prove humanity's worth as allies, not subjects." As Kevin spoke, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. A Nigean officer rushed to the holographic display, his movements urgent. "Commander, a group of our ships has broken formation. They're descending towards Earth." Zara whirled, her face contorted with rage. "Who authorized this? Recall them immediately." But the officer shook his head. "They're not responding to commands. It appears they're acting on their own initiative." Kevin's heart sank as he watched the rogue ships on the display, streaking towards his home planet. The delicate balance he had hoped to strike was crumbling before his eyes. Zara turned back to Kevin, her expression unreadable. It seems, human, that events have overtaken us. What do you propose we do now? Kevin met her gaze, knowing that his next words could determine the fate of both their species. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on him as he prepared to make the most crucial argument of his life. Kevin's mind raced as he assessed the situation. The rogue Nigean ships descending towards Earth threatened to undo everything he had fought for. He turned to Commander Zara, his expression resolute. "Commander, we have a chance to stop this before it escalates further," Kevin said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "I propose a joint task force, humans and Nigeans working together to intercept those ships." Zara's eyes narrowed, her alien features impossible to read. "You expect us to fight our own kind?" "I expect us to prevent unnecessary bloodshed," Kevin countered. "This is an opportunity to show the strength of both our species when we work together." For a tense moment, Zara was silent, her gaze fixed on the holographic display showing the rogue ship's descent. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, human. We will test this alliance of yours. But know that if this fails, the consequences will be severe." Kevin wasted no time. He opened a channel to Earth, quickly explaining the situation to General Stone. "We need our best pilots and soldiers ready to rendezvous with the Nigean ships in low Earth orbit," he said. "Understood," Stone replied, his voice gruff. "I'll assemble a team immediately. And Kevin, good luck." As Kevin prepared to board a Nigean interceptor, he was surprised to see Lyra approach, flanked by human guards. "I convinced your General Stone to let me join the mission," she explained. "My knowledge of our systems could prove useful." Kevin nodded, grateful for her presence. "All right, you're with me. Let's move." The launch bay was a flurry of activity as human and Nigean forces prepared for departure. Kevin marveled at the sleek design of the Nigean interceptor as he climbed into the cockpit, Lyra taking the co-pilot's seat beside him. "I hope you're a fast learner," Lyra said as she began explaining the ship's controls. Kevin's hands moved over the alien interface, his mind quickly adapting to the new technology. "I'll manage," he replied, a hint of a smile on his face despite the gravity of the situation. As they launched into space, Kevin was struck by the surreal sight of human and Nigean ships flying in formation. The rogue Nigean vessels were visible in the distance, their engines flaring as they entered Earth's atmosphere. "All units, this is Kevin Williams," he broadcast to the joint fleet. "Our primary objective is to disable the rogue ships with minimal casualties on both sides. Earth's forces will be providing support from the ground. Let's show what we can accomplish together." The battle began as they entered Earth's atmosphere. The rogue ships, caught off guard by the joint force, scattered their formation. Kevin's hands danced over the controls, guiding the interceptor through a series of complex maneuvers. "3 bogeys, coming in hot at 2 o'clock, Lyra called out, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Kevin banked hard, bringing their weapons to bear. "Firing solution locked," he said, squeezing the trigger. Bolts of energy lanced out, striking one of the enemy ships. Its engine sputtered and died, the vessel beginning a controlled descent to the surface. All around them, the sky was filled with streaks of weapons fire and the glow of engine exhaust. Human fighter jets weaved between the larger Nigean ships, providing covering fire and executing precision strikes. On the ground, Dr. Petrova and her team worked feverishly to bring their new electromagnetic pulse weapon online. "We're ready to fire," she reported to General Stone, "but we need precise coordinates to avoid hitting our allies." "Understood," Stone replied. He opened a channel to Kevin. "Williams, we need targeting data for the EMP strike. Can you provide?" Kevin glanced at Lyra, who nodded in confirmation. "Affirmative, General. Transmitting coordinates now. Be advised, timing will be critical." As they continued to dogfight with the rogue ships, Kevin coordinated with Earth's defense systems, guiding the EMP strikes. One by one, enemy vessels fell silent, their systems overloaded by the pulses. But the tide of battle shifted as the remaining rogue ships, led by Commander Vex, concentrated their attack on New York City. The sky above the metropolis lit up with weapons fire as the enemy vessels launched a brutal assault on the city's defenses. "They're going to overwhelm the city's shields," Lyra warned, her voice tight with concern. Kevin's teeth gritted as he made a split-second decision. "Lyra, take control of the ship. I'm going to lead a boarding party onto Vex's command vessel." "That's suicide," Lyra protested, but her hands were already moving to take over the flight controls. "Maybe," Kevin admitted, "but it's our best shot at ending this quickly." He quickly assembled a mixed team of human and Nigean fighters, briefing them on the plan as they prepared to board Vex's ship. The tension between the two species was palpable, but there was also a grudging respect forming as they recognized each other's skills. Their interceptor pulled alongside the massive Nigean command ship, matching its velocity. Kevin led the charge as they breached the hull, immediately engaging in close-quarters combat with Vex's security forces. The corridors of the alien vessel became a battleground, filled with the sound of energy weapons and the clash of hand-to-hand combat. Kevin fought his way forward, his human agility complementing the raw strength of his Nigean allies. As they battled through the ship, Kevin caught glimpses of the larger conflict through viewports and tactical displays. The joint human-Nigean force was holding its own, but New York's defenses were weakening under the concentrated assault. Finally, they reached the bridge. The doors slid open to reveal Commander Vex, his face contorted with rage and defiance. "You dare to invade my ship?" he snarled, raising a weapon. Kevin dove for cover as energy bolts sizzled past him. "This ends now, Vex," he called out. "Your fleet is in ruins. Surrender, and we can prevent further bloodshed." Vex's response was a barrage of weapons fire that forced Kevin and his team back. As they exchanged fire with the bridge crew, Kevin's mind raced, searching for a way to end the conflict before New York's defenses failed. In orbit above Earth, Commander Zara watched the unfolding battle with growing interest. The humans had proven far more capable than she had anticipated, their adaptability and courage in the face of superior technology impressive. Perhaps there was more to this species than she had initially believed. As Kevin and his team fought to subdue Commander Vex and his loyalists, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the future of human-Nigean relations and the safety of Earth itself. Kevin's mind raced as he assessed the situation on the bridge. Vex's relentless barrage of weapons fire had pinned them down, but he knew they couldn't afford to waste time. With a quick hand signal, he directed his mixed team of humans and Nigeans to spread out, utilizing the cover provided by the bridge's various consoles and equipment. "Zahn, Cortez, flank left," Kevin commanded, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Ravik, suppressing fire on my mark." As his team moved into position, Kevin caught a glimpse of New York's skyline through the viewscreen. The city's shields flickered dangerously, straining under the assault from Vex's remaining ships. Time was running out. "Now!" Kevin shouted, and Ravik, a burly Nigean warrior, unleashed a torrent of energy bolts from his weapon. The sudden increase in firepower forced Vex and his loyalists to duck for cover, giving Kevin and the others the opening they needed. They surged forward, Kevin leading the charge. The bridge erupted into close-quarters combat, a frenzied mix of human and Nigean fighting styles. Kevin found himself grappling with a Nigean officer twice his size, using the alien's momentum against him to slam him into a nearby console. As Kevin turned to face his next opponent, a blast of energy seared past his ear, leaving an acrid smell in its wake. He dove for cover, his heart pounding in his chest. That's when he saw them, a squad of Nigean warriors unlike any he'd encountered before. Their movements were unnaturally fast, their strength clearly augmented beyond normal Nigean capabilities. One of them picked up a human soldier with one hand and threw him across the bridge as if he weighed nothing. "Bio-augmented warriors," Ravik growled, taking cover beside Kevin. "Vex must have been experimenting with enhancement techniques." Kevin watched as the enhanced Nigeans tore through their defenses. His mind flashed back to his fight with Keed, recalling the subtle weaknesses he'd exploited. "They're strong, but they're not invincible," he said. "We need to work together, use their strength against them." He quickly relayed his observations to the team, outlining a strategy to counter the enhanced warriors. "Aim for their joints," he instructed. "Their augmentations put extra strain on their skeletal structure. And watch for signs of fatigue. These enhancements won't last forever." The battle that ensued was brutal and intense. Kevin's team fought with everything they had, combining human ingenuity with Nigean strength. They used the ship's environment to their advantage, luring the enhanced warriors into tight spaces where their augmented strength became a liability. Kevin found himself facing off against one of the enhanced Nigeans. The alien's fist came at him with lightning speed, but Kevin was ready. He sidestepped the punch, feeling the rush of air as it passed by his face. Using the Nigean's momentum, Kevin executed a precise throw, slamming the warrior into the ground with bone-jarring force. As the fight raged on, Kevin noticed the enhanced warriors beginning to slow. Their movements became less precise, their attacks less coordinated. "They're burning out," he called to his team. "Push them hard. Don't let up." With renewed vigor, the mixed human-Nigean team pressed their advantage. One by one, the enhanced warriors fell, their augmentations failing under the sustained assault. Finally, only Commander Vex remained. She stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes blazing with fury and defiance. "You think you've won, human?" she snarled. "I'll destroy you and your pathetic planet myself." Vex lunged at Kevin, her augmented strength propelling her across the bridge in a blur of motion. Kevin barely had time to brace himself before she slammed into him, driving them both against a nearby bulkhead. The impact knocked the wind out of Kevin, but he fought through the pain. As Vex pulled back for another strike, Kevin ducked low, using her own momentum to flip her over his shoulder. Vex recovered quickly, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to land on her feet. The two circled each other, each looking for an opening. Kevin could see the strain in Vex's movements, the slight tremor in her hands that indicated her augmentations were beginning to fail. He knew he had to end this quickly. Vex attacked again, her fists a blur as she unleashed a flurry of punches. Kevin weaved and dodged, letting her expend her energy. He retaliated with precise strikes, targeting the weak points he'd identified in her augmented physiology. As the fight wore on, Vex's movements became increasingly erratic. Her attacks, while still powerful, lacked their earlier precision. Kevin saw his opportunity and took it. He feinted left, then dropped low, sweeping Vex's legs out from under her. As she fell, he grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back and driving her face first into the deck. "It's over, Vex," Kevin said, his breathing heavy. "Stand down." For a moment, Vex continued to struggle. Then, as if all the fight had suddenly left her, she went limp. "I yield," she growled, her voice filled with bitterness. Kevin quickly secured Vex and turned his attention to the ship's systems. With the help of Ravik and the other Nigeans on his team, he managed to access the command protocols. Without hesitation, he broadcast a surrender order to all remaining rogue ships. As the transmission went out, Kevin held his breath. For a few tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the rogue ships powered down their weapons. The attack on New York's shields ceased, and a collective sigh of relief echoed through the bridge. Kevin opened a channel to Lyra. "Status report," he said, his voice hoarse from the battle. "We've done it," Lyra replied, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and elation. "The rogue fleet is standing down. Earth is safe." Before Kevin could respond, another transmission came through. It was Commander Zara, her expression a mix of surprise and grudging respect. "It seems we underestimated you, human," Zara said. "Your species has proven its strength and ingenuity today. Perhaps there is more to learn from Earth than we initially believed." Kevin straightened, feeling the weight of the moment. "Commander Zara, on behalf of Earth, I accept your recognition. We've shown today what we can accomplish when we work together. I believe this could be the beginning of a new era for both our species." Zara nodded solemnly. "Indeed. I propose we discuss the terms of a formal alliance between our peoples. It's clear that we have much to offer each other." As Kevin began to respond, He was interrupted by a burst of static from the communication system. General Stone's voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Williams, we're picking up anomalous energy readings from the disabled rogue ships," Stone reported. "We need to secure them immediately before—" The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Kevin and his team staring at each other in concern. The battle might be over, but it was clear that their challenges were far from finished.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.